Thank y'all for coming, and thanks for indulging us in playing the songs. I thought it would be a nice way to introduce my poetry, seeing as it's very much informed by music, both secular and sacred. It's church music I grew up singing. I'm mainly going to be reading from my new book, Backmasking, which is available here at Malvern. And then after I read, David Longoria is going to read. His book is also available here, as well as all these amazing titles. So please feel free to shop about and support this great independent bookstore. The most obvious place to start is at the beginning of the book. Call to prayer. O heavenly make-believe Father, hear thy doves cooing on this 90-degree winter day. See thy early buds flash pink and purple for all those bees you did not create. Forgive me, thy doubting son, for this afternoon, as I almost spied your shadow, shadowing mine down a sun-stricken side street. Behind that church I always pass, but someday might enter. We all tell ourselves the craziest things, like forgive and forget, do unto others, love the one you're with, Inagata Devita. And just between the two of us, I'm not so sure you're even up there at all. Nosy neighboring, peeking out behind silver cloud curtains, taking down tag numbers and calling the cops. But in case you are, thanks for the aroma of coffee, the slow striptease of sunset, for thunderstorms so reassuring from a distance. Thanks for the way women cross and uncross their legs, the way live oak branches dip and sway in balmy breezes, their green fingers turning tiny pages of twilight, the way we dream you, then forget upon awakening. Most of you probably know what backmasking is. It's a recording technique in which you reverse the tapes. Of course, you don't do tape anymore. It's all digital, so you can do it on the computer. But back in the day, you reverse the tapes, record a sound, and then play it forward in the track, thus making it backwards. Popularized by the Beatles, other psychedelic groups in the 60s. Later on in the 70s and 80s, fundamentalist preachers, evangelical church groups kind of started a crusade against this. They were hearing satanic messages, subliminal messages corrupting America's youth. And actually, Arkansas and California, I believe, passed state legislation to sticker these records that had satanic messages. So it was pretty amazing that happened. But all it did was, of course, sell more records. And this next poem goes into what happens when something is preached against. It just tends to make it all that more alluring. Backmasking presentation, United Methodist Church Group, Tuscumbia, Alabama, 1985. The basement reeks of tater tots. Our guts are gurgling after Sunday dinner. Preacher recalls the rock and roll and sinful glut of youth, the Jethro Tull and Alice Cooper and Molly Hatchet shows, the grass and wine. He lays an album on the stereo's table and speaks of overdoses, doing lines of coke and dust and smack. He drops the needle but spins the album in reverse. The sounds I dig are cymbals, fuzz guitar, and bells that swell and moan like magic underground. This singer, preacher yells, is seeking hell and wants to place your soul in Satan's hands. I knew that night I'd have to join a band. If you maybe caught the rhyme scheme there in the iambic pentameter, it's in the English sonnet form. The bulk of the book I did write in English sonnet form. I'm a big fan of David Wojohn's book Mystery Train. And in the Mystery Train poems, he details famous and infamous rock and roll scenes in rock and roll history. The Beatles at Hamburg, Elvis meeting Nixon, Jerry Lee Lewis marrying his 13-year-old cousin, stuff like that. But anyway, James Brown at the Apollo, that's a good one. But I decided to base, it's kind of a blueprint for this collection, except I wanted it to be my personal rock and roll history. Also, I had attended the Swanee Writers Conference a couple years back, and we were working in formal poetry there, so I wrote not only sonnets, but villanelles, pantoums. And so I've got an example of a pantoum I was going to read. It's a French form based on the Malaysian oral tradition. And not only is this a pantoum, but it's a found poem, meaning that I just lifted the text from an outside source, in this case an interview. Pantoum from Wilson Pickett interview. Mother was the baddest woman in my book. I get scared of her now, and I was raised on gospel. She'd hit me with anything, skillets and stove wood. One time I ran away and cried for a whole week. I get scared of her now, and I was raised on gospel that the preacher screamed out on a Sunday morning. And one time I ran away and cried for a whole week, stayed in the backwoods, me and my little dog. That preacher screamed out on a Sunday morning, like mother kneeling down, hollering for my soul. And I stayed in the backwoods, me and my little dog. But God don't put no more on you than you can bear. After mother knelt down and hollered for my soul, she'd hit me with anything, skillets and stove wood. But God don't put no more on you than you can bear. That mother was the baddest woman in my book. So that's a pantoum. I'll go back to the sonnets now. I've got a cheat sheet here, sorry. Fame studio session, Muscle Shoals, Alabama, 1989. Its history in rock and roll was lost on me the night that we snuck in. My buddy John had called a friend who'd let us tape for free. The evening band had paid, was packed and gone when we arrived with drums, guitars, and Tom. His blank cassettes would dub our only tune. I can't recall who played the bass or hum the hooks and riffs we tracked. So, pretty soon, we called it quits, our demo done. I'd love to say we felt Aretha's vibe or heard that Wilson Pickett preacher scream above our own pathetic din. But clever words and chords are not enough. Beside our cars, we lingered in the lot and spoke of stars. This one is one of the first sonnets I wrote. You can really hear it. It's the form. I was really adhering to the form. The rhymes are really close. I had not gotten adventurous yet with the enjambment and all that. You can really hear the form. A Valdosta family tragedy, Colbert County, Alabama, 1982. My neighbor up the street shows me some licks a year before I get my first guitar. And in his room, he plays along with Styx, Van Halen, Jimmy Buffett, and the Cars. His sister also cranks this music loud on mornings off to school. Her kids all smiles. They never hear the train, and so it plows into their Ford and spreads them half a mile. The city folks get out to clear the tracks as meadowlarks sit piping in the fields. Her parents weep and pray and dress in black to bury them up high on Baptist Hill. That Jesus picture sitting on their shelf reminds me, prayer's just talking to yourself. Go further back in the time here. My dad, growing up in North Alabama, one of his best friends was a guy named Billy Sherrill, who went on to become a legendary country music producer, produced George Jones, Tammy Wynette, basically invented what's called countrypolitan music, or the style, to elements of pop music, strings, background vocals, added into hillbilly music. So if you don't like the state of modern country, you can blame this guy here, Cheryl. A lot of people do. But before that, he did this. Billy Sherrill borrows Granddaddy's Martin acoustic, Bear Creek, Alabama, 1960. This fella dresses cool. His pompadour is longish, greasy, menthol cigarette and pointy shoes. So Max, he slurs, this here guitar will do just fine. I'm off to hit old Muscle Shoals or Nashville. Daddy shuffles the gravel road and says, that Otis, he retired from gospel singing into sales or something. Picking ain't his life. So Billy, with sweaty brow, with baby beard, takes the axe from Max and burns a riff. This rube can really play, my daddy thinks. His lips report like rifle fire. Been reading tab and charts to learn the chords, he says, then sighs. This neck is smooth as Sally's inner thighs. All right, do a couple more of the sonnets, backmasking, and move on. Are you washed in the blood? Bortush, Alabama, 1955. So Henry Tidwell, mother's daddy, is struck by a neighbor's white lightning. He falls a tremble to his knees. They sink and suck into the reddish mud. He frowns and pulls another sup. Beneath his humming hive of bees he cries, "Oh Lord, am I a sinner? Too many pretty legs for me to give attention to, and nary a word at dinner, kind or otherwise, from my own woman. Too tight is Henry to feel the stinging bee upon his neck. Another sign, an omen of sorts, the fallen leaves from maple trees that pool and pond like drops from a wound. Oh God, he yelps, is your answer only wind? All right, going further back into time to do more. Old Union Baptist Church, Winston County, Alabama, 1939. A Sunday morning dawns among the pines. The boy, my daddy, climbs into a buggy with Uncle Cleve, who smells of smoke and wine from muscadines. He tugs the reins. That Jenny, she snorts and clops along a muddy road towards the meeting house out by the slough. Before too long, a mason jar he stowed beneath the bench. It thumps on Daddy's shoes. So Cleve, he barks a curse, says, "Bare your feet, you hear. Your mother'll tan my sorry hide, and God don't fret about us dressing neat." Nearby the church they halt. "I'll stay outside," he says, as Daddy mounts the splintered stairs. Old Cleve and mule stay put to snore their prayers. All right, that's going to do it for backmasking. I'm going to go even further back into time here to my first collection, Waiting for the Fire to Go Out. There's a couple of poems I'd like to read that where I seem to be kind of reaching for this rock and roll narrative voice. Early Recordings, Volume 1. The first thing you notice is tape hiss, a wavy analog breath building into cicada buzz. Your Christian name displayed in spidery cursive on a yellow cassette cover. A man mumbles, blue jays shriek. A child's voice chimes in, deep south inflections, honeysuckle sweet and pine sap dripping. In this voice you hear church hymnal pages turn, a merry-go-round squeak, summer downpours on a tin roof. It responds to the man mumbles with bird sounds and giggles. You press rewind, play repeatedly, hearing the swish of corduroy. And for this title, pardon my French, let's see how I pronounce it, L'amour de loin, Love from Afar. That sound good? Before sound check and breasts, my beetle-booted feet caress streets bombed, paved by allies, and where the sidewalk ends, out past ships at dock, a blue-green ruffled rug of Atlantic lies up against gray wall of sky, paint flaking off into cirrus clouds, each smudge a strange seabird. Beyond that wall, far out into overgrown backyards of America, I can almost see you in midday sun, removing a straw hat, setting down shears for a sweating bottle of beer. I twist and shout, scream your name until I pass out. All right. I have a new book that'll be coming out summer of next year called Lost in the Telling. And I'd like to read a long poem from it. I'm trying to sort of get away from the personal narrative and get a little deeper to the subconscious, I guess, into the dream world. And an early draft of this poem actually won the Mississippi Review Poetry Prize this year, which was pretty cool, and I was excited about that. But I'm going to be reading a later version that's going to appear in my book next year. Blues Dreams for Hubert Sumlin. Part 1, born under a bad sign. Along the way, somebody hefted an axe and took some wax against my family tree. Those dead branch second cousins, those low-hanging aunts and uncles, gone soggy and rotten, they all had it coming. To this day, I bay like the neighbor's cur, drunken from the fermented windfalls. I droop and dream of Daddy's orchard, all the shiny and soft pears and plums, honeybees up in the sun-bright blossoms, each trunk weather-worn, bug-scarred, each fruit wearing a face I'll fondly forget. Part 2, mannish boy. And another time, Daddy says, look out the window, not my window, your window, the one that's cracked, the one that's half open and hazy from mud splatter and field grit, the one letting in those raindrops, fat and salty, falling from Gulf clouds. See that crooked old house yonder, leaning behind the Texaco pump? They say the ghost of lovely Lloyd haunts the front porch rocking chair, hollering and waving, fast-passing traffic bound for Tupelo or Jasper or Bear Creek or Nauvoo. Wave back at Lloyd, son. He baited your hooks. He let you ring up the cash register. His wife Martha wiped your ass once. Sorry about the visuals. Part 3, another mule kicking in my stall. At this juncture, the river is too wide, too swift, and too strong. A bottleneck slide scraped along taut catgut strings that sing and moan like a crop-beaten beast of burden. Cry gee, then cry haw. Cry over evil deeds done at midnight. What a sight, this old muddy flooding fields, lapping the levee. I'll get there somehow, some way, and on that day, you'll be sorry you've done me wrong. My High John the Conqueror route, my gree-gree bag, 38 special hot in my hand. I just quit that band, burnt down your house of blues. You say 2 of us forever, but my aim is true. Part 4, see that my grave is kept clean. Salt these wounds, my sweaty friend, and let the noise begin with Elmore, Blind Lemon, Muddy, and all the Keens. Men do feel the need to be useful, even when low on gas, passed out, flaccid, drunk upon scuffed hardwoods. I'll be good by tomorrow morn. Your sneer, your scorn is my rye whiskey and draft beer. Do you hear Sonny Boy's harp out of tune and yet perfect? Do you taste champagne, smell the reefer? Can't you see sooner or later we all live our blues? We enter that cutting contest bound to lose. All right, I'm gonna read one more and turn it over to David Longoria for more poetry and music. Thanks to Malvern, Becky, and Chandra and all the staff here. Appreciate it. And since I started with a call to prayer, I'll finish with this one. So it's a new early draft here. Benediction. Each day I wake to a bedroom dream, dark and death quiet. This room, the right lung inside my dream house. Outside this house, this morning air fills with sunlight, with bird song. The unseen songbirds are heard. My heart, an overworked metaphor, forcing blood through veins, filling cells with fullness, my well-fed trunk and limbs, muscle memory me to the metal desk where I feel empty, those tiny workaday hours, till a bus home, one seat left, pulls up to my heart and trunk, my limbs and blood. But this oleander with heavy blossomed branches waves me back to a vacant ball field beside a pond. That pond is full of sky. That sky is full of clouds. Those clouds floating inside my mind's dream are full of emptiness. My cup runneth over. Thank you.